Standpoint of what you do as a blocking tight end, how satisfying was this last game for you?
I think me, along with a lot of the offensive linemen, even some of the receivers, and along with Kyler, and anyone that helps produce a big touchdown run like that first play, or any of those big runs that Roy had in the first quarter throughout the game, that you're just as happy about him scoring as you are about yourself scoring sometime throughout the season.
Hey Ben, how unique is this Iowa State game for you? You grew up in Ames for a while and went to high school there. For you to go back and play there, how unique will this week be?
It's going to be a different experience for me. I've never really played many guys that I played against or with in high school. Or not. I played with them in high school and played against a few guys on their defense in my high school career. So it's going to be a fun experience. But just once again trying to stay focused on doing what we need to do to get a win on Saturday.
Does that provide any extra motivation at all for you going against some guys that you know?
I think in the past it probably would have had a lot more emotion involved, but I think the fact that we've grown into the system here and how much more I care about just winning the next game for this team or helping to do whatever I can, I think that's overtaking that whole revenge aspect from anything from the past.
Is there a different feel at all this week when in the last couple of weeks you guys have had you're going against undefeated teams that were ranked in the top 15, have had some national following around those games, and this is different from a numbers standpoint. Is there you guys have to look in different places for motivation?
Definitely not. This point of the season, it's whoever can survive that is going to win the North and is going to reach that Big 12 championship. That's been our focus each week, is just focus on doing what we need to do best on each side of the ball, to win on Saturday. But I wouldn't say there's any more or any less expectations that we have for ourselves to get our work done on Saturday.
How big was that game last week to vault you guys to the top of the Big 12 North standings?
What's that?
How big was the game to vault you to the top of the Big 12 North standings last week?
It's just as big as any game each week, because we wouldn't have been in that position if we didn't win the week before, and we won't be in that position if we don't win this Saturday. So.
Ben, you guys have to feel really good where you're at right now. Tied for first with the tiebreaker and coming up with two really nice wins.
Yeah, I mean, we feel great about it, but it's not changing anyone's attitude. I haven't seen anyone's demeanor change, about how hard we're going to work in practice and how we need to go about our business, this week and each week after that from here on out.
Ben, did you guys burn that film from last year's Iowa State game? Want to watch it at all?
No. I mean, Coach Brown's actually mentioned he's doing another film study for us. Because they're a really good defense about getting the ball out. That's one of the things we're going to be talking about all week and working on in practice all week about how their ability to strip the football and get the ball on the ground. That's going to be one of our main focuses, is trying to hold on to the football.
On the bizarre scale, where did that game rank as far as games you've been involved with last year's game?
Rank as far as what?
Just, as far as being kind of bizarre, turning it over 8 times.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've never really been a part of a game. I don't think anyone on the team's been a part of a game where the defense plays so well as they did, and the offense, we couldn't seem to hold on to the football. There were just a couple, freak accidents that all happened like a domino effect, but we're doing everything we can, as we have been all year, to work on that ball security issue.
Did that kind of haunt you guys for a while last year? I mean, you came back and put together a winning streak after that. Did the thoughts stay fresh in your mind of just the crazy way that things went wrong in that game for a while after it?
Yeah, I think it helped. It made us a lot better team, of how much more focus we needed to put in to the work and the process, of each week before each game. And I think ever since then, the whole idea of keeping a hold on to football, how important winning that turnover battle is. That you're not going to win many football games if you're losing by 2, 3, 4, and up to 8 turnovers we had in that game. So.
Is it encouraging that, considering that you guys are coming off a game where you didn't turn it over at all?
Yeah, it's definitely encouraging, but once again, we're not going to take back from any of the ball security drills we've been doing. Every practice that we've been doing all season up to now. We've had a little bit of a turnover issue up till last week, and we were fortunate not to put the ball on the ground. But it's not changing our focus at all from the working standpoint.
What was that like that Missouri game to come out and get the starts you had in the first quarter? You hadn't had a start like that at home in a while. To just jump on them and put them in a huge deficit right off the bat?
I think that it was a product of our week that we had in practice, honestly. I think we had one of the best weeks we've had all season, of consecutive practices where we came out, we played fast, we played hard, we were focused all week long, trying to stay away from all the distractions that, I think some guys might have gotten caught up in, in other home games throughout the year, and that was our biggest focus, stay focused on the game and not really pay attention to anything going on around you.
Hey, Ben, what's the biggest difference with the offense when Taylor Martinez is not at quarterback?
I honestly would say there's really no difference. I think we're just as confident, with Zach and Cody and, any of our guys that the coaches might put in there at quarterback. I know the play calling, the strategy, the attitude, nothing on the team changes at all.
You got a chance to see maybe Nebraska from a different set of eyes, maybe in Iowa. What do Iowa State people think of Nebraska?
I think Iowa State people, along with all the other Big 12 North teams, I mean they've seen what we've done in the past, and they might not like it very much, but they've got good fans just like we do, and you can't say anything bad about them. I know it's kind of like they hang over the head sometimes because it's a big successful program, but nothing bad to say about any of those programs.
You're familiar with Iowa State fans, but did you ever get to know Iowa fans in general and kind of understanding of their animosity towards Nebraska?
You mean for the Hawkeye fans? Not really. I mean, I'm sure that'll change next year as we start playing and stuff like that. But that's a different story. When that time comes. But for Iowa State, it's the two of their biggest games, other than the next game on their schedule is Iowa and Nebraska. So it should be a fun experience.
The last two games, Taylor showed ability to chuck it around the yard a little bit. Surprised a lot of us, but it didn't seem like it surprised you guys on offense. I mean, has he shown that ability to throw it around in practice?
Oh yeah, definitely. Along with Cody and Zach, they're all able to make plays with their feet as well as plays with their arms. So it was fun to see that it go a different way for once. But we're happy no matter what happens as long as we win.
You look back at the film sometimes and just be in awe of what Taylor does sometimes. Sometimes early on, like in fall camp, you catch yourself and you're like, wow, that kid can make plays. But I think at this point, what everyone's capable of. All the weapons, on our offense. So we're not surprised by anything on Saturday. It's just a product of what we've worked on all week in practice and all year in practice.
As an offense, how are you guys approaching this week? Because Taylor didn't practice yesterday. Coach said there's a chance he might not practice today. So how would that maybe change things on Saturday if he does play and yet you guys didn't practice with him throughout the full week?
We're confident. Everything that Mark Meyer and Pat and the trainers will just help decide. Coach Pliny and those guys will make those decisions. But we trust that he's going to be healthy, and if he is healthy, if he's out there, he'll do his best and still be able to make the same plays. And if he's not, if it's Cody or Zach, we'll be just as confident as either one of those guys out there too.
But you guys around him will be able to make that adjustment just fine.
Oh yeah, easily, yeah.
Bragging rights, obviously they're big for offensive linemen, but are they knockdown blocks and bragging rights for tight ends and wide receivers as well?
Yeah, and I think that whole bragging right ability of how many knockdowns you can get in a game is growing around here. It's getting back to what it used to be. In the 90s, you got receivers driving guys to the outside the back of the end zone, and getting guys on the ground deep down the field. And that's one thing we've been hyping not only as coaches and players, but those kind of blocks are what break some of those big runs sometimes, because it's that last one or two guys that could be bringing a touchdown run down to the ground.
So how are you doing on that list?
I'm doing fairly well, but could also be doing even better than I am doing. But I think as a group, you can see the numbers of knockdowns. We keep track of them have gone up over the last couple of years, and we're real proud of that.
Who's leading?
Who's leading?
Yeah.
Honestly, by room I could probably say, but I don't know as far as overall standings. But
okay, in your room then.
I'm leading in our room, yeah.
By how much?
I have no idea. Kyler, it just comes down, some of the plays that, me and Kyler, are in on, and sometimes he's in on more passing stuff, and, there's not as many opportunities, but, for the amount of run plays we both get, we both do our best to get guys on the ground.
Was that you who rode your guy about 10 yards out of bounds before you put him on his back?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
That, Coach Brown said that's an automatic knockdown if you put him on the sideline, so, that was a lot of fun.
Ben, how confident, great job rushing the football for the team against Missouri. Now, as we see in the statistic, Iowa State not the best team against the rush. And I guess without giving them bulletin board material, how confident are you that the rushing game can have really another good day coming this Saturday?
I think it's all once again based on the week we have in practice. I mean, we have a pretty good idea of how things will go on Saturday by how practice goes throughout the week. By Friday night we're going to know how confident we are in running the ball, and I think we all know what we're capable of, and I think our biggest issue is going to. I mean, these guys play hard. These guys play as hard as anybody we played this year. So it's going to be a challenge, to compete with a team that plays that hard, and that has the ability to get the ball out, but. I know we're confident each week and that we can run the ball on anybody. So.